couple things here with this tree placement that we have. So right now, we turn on our symbols here, get that placed where you can see it. We have a Swiss stone pine tree, Pinus sembra nana. So this is a Swiss stone pine, and we have a group of those placed already on here. They're all individual plants in a grouping, some on a berm, some off near some other pine trees here, and then we also have the beginnings of a pecan row to the south of that. So we have these individual trees. What we're going to do now is add to these trees and make them all a polyculture, so that it's a very simple way then to keep track, like I mentioned previously, the other trees. So we're going to open up. Here's this symbol. We're going to double click on that symbol, and now what we get is the tree symbol. We're in editing mode, and because up in the upper corner here you're going to see the name of the symbol, and then that little arrow basically that we'll click on when we're done tells you that you're in editing mode. So right now we're going to edit this, and we're going to add some more plants to it. What I'd like to put in is a nitrogen fixer nurse plant that we can put next to it. By the way, south is to the right in this setting. And one of the plants that I want to put in here, let's see if I can get this in. Right here is Bladder senna. Now this is a shorter tree, 10 to 13 feet with a 5 to 10 foot spread. So it's about half the size of a Swiss stone pine that will be grown there. Full sun, partial shade, sandy, loamy, silty, right? Great soil tolerances. It's in the range of our hardiness zone and a pH zone. All of that. Great plant. But it's a nitrogen fixer and a nurse plant. And based on drought tolerance and its fast growth rate, this would be a great plant to put on the south side to protect our little pine tree as it's getting started. It also is a nitrogen fixer, so we have double duty with this plant going next to it. So we're going to put in Bladder senna next to it. So here we're back into Illustrator. Here we have the tree. I'm going to go into my symbol library here, and the Bladder senna is a much shorter tree. I think what we saw in there was 10 foot, something like that. Looking. Maybe it was at the top. No. But you can see in our plant list, you know, one thing that we could do is we could even bring in, and would be good to do, is a couple lead plants, prairie plants, right along here. Also a nitrogen fixer, and see how that works out. I'm also going to put in a 6 foot smaller aronia under the canopy area to also protect this tree, and add some very good possibilities for harvest of the aronia berries. And here's the Bladder senna right there. So we have the Swiss stone pine, we have the aronia, we have a Bladder senna, and then we have 2 lead plants in here. Lead plants are nitrogen fixing, much like the senna, and they have the compound leaf. It doesn't get very tall, 3 feet tall, which makes it really a nice ground cover plant for nitrogen fixing in here too. So let's just say that we have these now all set. We've picked them out. We have these placed where we want so that we can get some benefits from them. And also the tree gets benefit from them also. They're placed. We go back up and click that arrow. Now all of those images, or excuse me, those symbols on the screen, every one of those now has the plant. So we've taken that Swiss stone pine, and we've made it a symbol polyculture as opposed to just having the plants in there and different ones. Now, as long as we know how many of those that we have, we can click on this now, and we can see in our symbol library that the Swiss stone pine has all these plants in it ready to go. If we want to know how many Swiss stone pines we have in the design, we go up to this right corner and we have select all instances, and it will select those all. And if you open up the window, the document information window, symbol instances, then we'll say 48. So I know that in my design, by the way, you have to have objects checked on this menu. We have 48 Swiss stone pine polycultures in this design on this property. Each of those has 4 lead plants, 1 bladder senna, and 1 aronia. So in my spreadsheet, when I'm working on this, I'm going to have in my column over in here, I'm going to start marking which ones polycultures I have and making additional columns. And we have this as a polyculture calculator. How many of each one of those Swiss stone pine polycultures I have, and let it do the math and really tell me how many different ones those I have, and count up the plants for me. So that's how you add and make polycultures out of a symbol. Now, one other thing, you look at this and it's a nice drawing. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to open up that symbol again. Let's zoom in on that, right? And it's a, very clean, very nice drawing. One of the things, though, that I like to do to add some depth to this, we're going to do Control A and select everything in this picture. Okay. Right now, everything is a symbol except for the Swiss stone pine. And if I go up to Effects, I can stylize a drop shadow. And since we have south is to the right, we're going to do an offset of X, which is 0.1 inches to the left. And we're not going to move the shadow either way. And so we're adding basically a drop shadow to the left side of this tree on the north side of this tree. It'll really add some depth. And we click OK on that. Click OK on the editing. And now each one of those trees has a little shadow off to the left side, which really adds some depth. If you want to, you can go in and add this to each one of these in our plant symbol. If I pick the lead plant and double click on that, I can highlight that plant. We'll zoom in again. Highlight that plant. Go up to Effects and add the drop shadow. And now I have a little shadow off to the left of this plant. You can see how that shows up. And now when we go back to our design, we have little shadows on the left side. This really adds a lot of depth to an image to have the shadow. See how it softens it up? It actually makes it look almost 3D to have that kind of drop shadow on the north side of the plant. Sometimes it's at the top, obviously if north is up at the top or down. But adding those drop shadows really adds a lot of softness to the design. And every one of these trees now, every one of these plants can be moved as a group. Now you can see all these here are on the berm. These are on the berm. If I want to open them up, if I want to make sure that there's space in between, that's good. And I can move these all about. But now I have all of my polyculture set for the design.